Actually, yeah, I was just telling Joe this. Anybody here ever watch Cartoon Network, Adult Swim? Harvey Birdman, attorney at law. I read that cartoon years ago when I was still a comic on the road. I think I started like you. I was a road comic and just wanted to do something in town. Wanted to do funny voices without having to travel everywhere to do it in front of drunks, right? You guys can be drunk at home, and I don't have to know why. I took over a role that you weren't doing anymore, Peter Potter's. So it became something that. And yeah, I don't think Joe was like physically unable to do it. I think he just didn't want to do it anymore. Really? No. Well, this isn't awkward at all, is it? They do, yeah. And so Potter's became a lot stranger as the series went on. And I don't know if the finale is aired yet, but you know, his catchphrase became, "Did you get that thing I sent you? Yes. So they started putting all this Yiddish slang in there. And on top of that, he doesn't even say yeah anymore. He starts saying yips. And it's like he's Popeye. And then they took away his hands and now he has hooves. And I asked the creators, when did that happen? He said, we just decided one episode he's going to have hooves from now on. It was a lot of fun doing that. And also, yeah, I know, I started off doing Joe. And then it changed. And Celebrity Deathmatch, they brought back. They brought it back for 2 seasons, and then I don't think they're doing another one because I haven't heard. But yeah, I was here 2 years ago, and I was sitting next to Michael Oldley, one of the creators of Adult Swim. He said, "Chris, can you come sit next to me at Comic-Con because some of the fans kind of unnerve me." You know? You know, yeah. Comic-Con, where your freak flag can fly. And yeah, security. No, and I had a great time, and I got the call at Comic-Con 2 years ago that I was going to do Nick Diamond for the new Deathmatch, and Mills Lane, who had a stroke, who couldn't do it anymore, and so for Nick Diamond, I basically was voice matching a guy who I guess is a non-union actor out of New York, and was going to do the show. So basically, Nick Diamond is sort of a, you know, basically a nasal version of myself if I was extremely constipated. And is into all sorts of Marv Albert type, crazy, creepy things that you don't want the kids to know about. And exactly. Next up was Sports Crazies. You don't have to clap if you don't like it. And Mills Lane was actually the easiest one for me to do. Just for some reason, he's in my wheelhouse, and all Mills Lane is, "All right, you two, I want a real fight here. This ain't some namby-pamby schoolyard. This here's Deathmatch. Now let's get it on!" That you'd never know. I did a couple of lines for Black Hawk Down. I did stuff in Happy Feet. You know, it's a lot of ADR stuff. It's not glamorous, but you get that residual check in the mail, and it's plenty glamorous enough for me. But one game, I can tell you about this now because I never told anybody at the time, but when Lord of the Rings Return of the King had come out, the game was being released too, and Viggo Mortensen had issue with his compensation, and he decided he wasn't going to do it. And so they hired me at, you know, a tiny fraction of what Viggo did it for. So they flew me up to Redwood Shores and took me to the EA campus, and I did Aragorn, and had to do the whole speech, you know.
"I seen in your eyes the fear that would take the heart of me, but this day we fight!"
That kind of stuff. Except I realized I couldn't do Viggo when he was talking low. I can't do him when he's just sort of like this, but
if he yells or skewers an orc with his sword,
which is mostly what video games are. So that's nervous. Yeah, a couple, but I'll make them quick. On Harvey Birdman, it wasn't that she's particularly famous, but Paget Brewster, the voice of Bird Girl, I've never seen somebody come in and do an entire episode and not require a second take for anything. Every single line she did was perfect. Now, how many times have you guys ever seen that? And usually it's because somebody's so awful the engineer is humoring them until they get fired, you know, later. No, that's great. We're gonna keep that. Yeah, that'll be fun.
A nice fat strap for the person who actually does the job.
Yeah, exactly. Which leads into the next one. But Paget Brewster, I shook her hand afterward, and I was gushing so much that I thought, you should shut up because now you're becoming a stalker. There's a line between complimenting and the steely gaze of a serial killer. Yes. When I worked on Happy Feet, I got to work with George Miller, who I'm telling myself, this guy directed Mad Max, The Road Warrior. All right, Mad Max 3, Beyond Thunderdome, Witches of Eastwick. He's the nicest guy you could ever hope to meet. And then in comes one day, and this is in '03 when we're recording it, right? In comes Elijah Wood, whose eyes are as big as plates. Hey, everybody! He's the nicest kid you've ever met, and he's like 5'5". He walks in, how you doing? He was there for the entire session. I got to do a scene with him, and then George says, all right, we've got a break. You can take a 5-minute and go outside and smoke if you want. And Elijah goes, come on, everybody! One last one. I did 6 days of ADR work as 6 days of ADR work as Colin Farrell for Miami Vice. Michael Mann wanted to keep changing the dialogue, and Farrell was off shooting something else, and so they would have new lines, and they would have to bring me in to try and lip sync the new line to Colin Farrell's voice, and Farrell's basically doing his angry American, you know, and we'll bring up the constipated joke again because it kind of fits for this. And then at the end of it, I hadn't met Michael Mann in 5 or 6 days, and he came and shook my hand. And for me, it was a big deal because that's the guy who directed Heat, Last of the Mohicans, Collateral, all of that. So for me, that was just